Thriller genres are a conventional thriller genre is a storyline. It's usually quite realistic because having having a realistic thriller genre film is better to get the audience on the edge of their seat, because if it's more realistic, then they can feel like it can happen to them. It's more likely to happen to them. And I think we definitely use and developed upon this convention, as our film could happen to anyone easily. If a parent took their eye off a child, especially in the world that we live now, someone can easily take them and kidnap them. There's always stories about children getting kidnapped. So I definitely think that we've developed upon that convention of the thriller genre, because it's such a realistic storyline of our film. Our trailer is such a realistic storyline, and it can happen to anyone. And I think people watching the trailer will feel tense and they'd feel emotional towards the reactions of the relatives of the child, because it's not obviously it would mess up someone's whole life if they lost a child. Within cinematography, normal cinematography camera shots they use in the thriller genre are extreme close-ups and things like that to show the reactions and emotions of the main characters and the protagonists and antagonists. So I definitely think that we developed upon that, as there are loads of different camera extreme close-ups and close-ups of our antagonists, and also of the child that got kidnapped. An example of this is when the child that got kidnapped is in the basement or the cellar. There's an extreme close-up of his eyes, and you can see that he's scared. And also when George is being interviewed, there's extreme close-up to show his emotions and show that he's fed up of being interviewed so much and being accused of something that he didn't do. But the audience don't know what he has and what he hasn't done, so by looking at his reaction it gives them more of a hint, so they want to know what happened even more. I think with the use of more props, we could have made it more thrilling to watch, more exciting to watch, because we could have done things, we could have left out hints or more evidence to suggest what happened to the child. We could have made it like life-threatening, or we could have had people threatening the protagonist going after the child that got kidnapped, and I think it would have made it much more exciting for the audience to watch and built up a lot more tension, which is what thriller genres tend to try and do. So I think definitely lacking in the prop area has affected us, and if we planned further ahead before, then we could have done something about that. Within editing, it was my main role in the group to take hold of editing, and I think that editing is such a big important role when it comes to thriller genres, because of cross-cutting and jump cuts, which our film had lots of, especially being a trailer as well. It kept cutting from different bits of action to another, which is vital in a thriller genre film, because it builds tension, showing the audience one thing and showing them another, and bits of action happening in different places definitely builds the tension and makes the audience know what happened next, and it makes them want to go and actually watch the film, because they're seeing all this action happening in the trailer, so there must be much more in the actual film. So I think editing I use a lot of, and I think our editing was we definitely used and maybe even developed on the conventions of thriller genre, because we used so much of the jump cuts and the cross-cutting within our edit. Within mise-en-scène, we thought really hard about the location, because the place the child gets taken is the biggest part of the trailer, and it's the bit where we try and get the audience hooked. So we try to make sure that we pick the right place, and we thought park is somewhere that you'd think of when you thought about a kidnapping, because it's somewhere where parks can be quite a nice place. They can also be quite dodgy. So having that as a location for the most important part of the trailer was definitely something that I still think is the right decision to now. It'd be realistic for a child to get kidnapped in a place like a park, and using the film we watched, Kidnap, as inspiration, where her child got taken from a park in that film. We thought we'd use that as inspiration and do something similar, but put our own touch in it. So George and Jake have an argument, and Jake drops off, and before George has even realised that he's taken his eyes off him, he's gone, and it gives the audience something to think about, and like if they take their eyes off their child in a place like that, could it happen to them as well? So I think the location is so important within our trailer. So I think that the location of our film definitely links in with the conventions of a thriller genre, and I think we used the typical location you'd expect, because it's grimy. It's not like a nice area. You don't really associate parks with being a nice area. Throughout many of the scenes there are low-key lighting, but I think we challenged the low-key lighting convention, because there's only a few of our scenes that are low-key. There's not a lot of dark scenes. I just don't think we really planned to use a lot of low-key lighting, because of, I think, the trailer being... I think if we maybe had a child getting kidnapped in the dark, it would have been more effective and made the audience feel more... I think everything in the dark makes everything more dramatic. So I think if we did film it in the dark and more of low-key lighting, it would have been more effective. So that's something that if I would have gone back and I would have done that. So I think by challenging that, we've made the wrong decision. The convention of a thriller genre is for the antagonist's clothing to be dark, mysterious. However, I think we challenge that because you don't actually see anything of the antagonist, so you can't assume that he's wearing dark clothing. I think we could have done it better by maybe having a few more sneak peeks of the antagonist, and maybe had when the child was kidnapped, maybe we could have had someone in an all black tracksuit or something like that, something to cover up their identity, but you still see them. I think it would have been more effective and made the audience feel more tense if they could see someone that was clearly trying to hide their identity, rather than just not showing the antagonist whatsoever. So I think we challenged that convention by not doing so. We used black and white in some scenes, which is a thriller genre convention, and I think this is effective because it gives more of a thriller kind of look to it. It gives more of a different effect. Using black and white is more mysterious, and the audience will wonder why it's in black and why it's not a normal colour, which I think gives a sense of like confusion. The acting within our trailer is poor. I think we should have planned ahead before beginning filming and chosen our actors more wisely. Even though it doesn't affect the trailer that much, I think if we had better actors, it would have suited the thriller genre much more. Having bad actors definitely makes the audience feel less emotional, as you can tell by the acting that the actors aren't actually that upset by what's happened. And I think by having actors that had a better reaction and more convincing and emotional reactions, it would have made the audience have more of an emotional response. So I don't think that our acting was of the thriller genre, because thriller genre you'd expect the actors to be more over dramatic, more emotional, and I think our actors definitely lack that. So with more planning ahead before, we could have got actors that could have made more of an effect in our film, and definitely made it more related to the thriller genre. Costumes. I think our costumes definitely challenge, develop upon the normal conventions of a thriller genre. Our costumes, I think the costumes are so good in scenes like the investigation scene. You can see we've gone through the effort to get things you typically expect to see in an investigation scene. We've got white suits on. We're taking notes down on what's happened, and then you can see Joe picks up a glove, which is a piece of evidence. I think that scene definitely links our trailer to the thriller genre massively, because that's the kind of thing you'd expect to see when something goes wrong. If there's been a car crash or a murder or a kidnapping, you'd expect them to be people there looking for evidence and to see what's happened. So I think definitely by doing that, it's linked just to thriller genre massively. Other than those costumes, I think Jules being in a suit, it just makes, for the majority of the film, it just makes him look much older and more of like a fatherly and brotherly figure. So I think both of those, I think the costumes definitely strongly give off mise en scène thriller conventions.